Listen to the entire torture story, and it will surprise you. The message came in the dead of night, as they always do. A single ping on my encrypted server, followed by a cascade of gibberish that only my custom decryption algorithm could untangle. I watched the characters morph into a coherent sentence, each word a promise of something darker than the last. Enter the red room tonight at 2 a.m. Password, Hellstream. My pulse quickened. I had heard whispers about the Red Room, a mythical space on the deep web where the darkest desires came to life. Live streams of torture, pain, and death, each one more gruesome than the last. It was said to be the final frontier of human depravity, a place where morality ceased to exist, and only the strong survived. For years, I had been a passive observer, skirting the edges of the deep web, exploring its many layers without ever diving too deep. But tonight, the invitation was personal. Someone, somewhere, had noticed my curiosity and deemed me worthy of entry. The message came in the dead of night, as they always do. A single ping on my encrypted server, followed by a cascade of gibberish that only my custom decryption algorithm could untangle. I watched the characters morph into a coherent sentence, each word a promise of something darker than the last. Enter the Red Room tonight at 2 a.m. Password, Hellstream. My pulse quickened. I had heard whispers about the Red Room, a mythical space on the deep web where the darkest desires came to life. Live streams of torture, pain, and death, each one more gruesome than the last. It was said to be the final frontier of human depravity, a place where morality ceased to exist, and only the strong survived. For years, I had been a passive observer, skirting the edges of the deep web, exploring its many layers without ever diving too deep. But tonight, the invitation was personal. Someone, somewhere, had noticed my curiosity and deemed me worthy of entry. The camera zoomed in on the chair, now occupied by a man, bound and gagged. His eyes darted wildly, filled with terror. The masked figure circled him like a predator, savoring the fear that radiated from his captive. Ladies and gentlemen, the figure's voice was distorted, electronically altered to disguise its origin. Tonight, we have a special treat. A man who has wronged many, but tonight, justice will be served. The chat box erupted in excitement, a cacophony of bloodlust and anticipation. I leaned in closer, my eyes glued to the screen. User 1, do it. Make him scream. User 2, I want to see blood. User 3, show no mercy. The masked figure produced a knife, its blade gleaming under the harsh light. The man in the chair thrashed against his bonds, muffled screams escaping his gag. The figure approached slowly, savoring the moment, then plunged the knife into the man's leg. A collective gasp echoed through the chat box as blood spurted from the wound, staining the floor. The camera zoomed in on the chair, now occupied by a man, bound and gagged. His eyes darted wildly, filled with terror. The masked figure circled him like a predator, savoring the fear that radiated from his captive. Ladies and gentlemen, the figure's voice was distorted, electronically altered to disguise its origin. Tonight, we have a special treat. A man who has wronged many, but tonight, justice will be served. The chat box erupted in excitement, a cacophony of bloodlust and anticipation. I leaned in closer, my eyes glued to the screen. User 1, do it. Make him scream. User 2, I want to see blood. User 3, show no mercy. The masked figure produced a knife, its blade gleaming under the harsh light. The man in the chair thrashed against his bonds, muffled screams escaping his gag. The figure approached slowly, savoring the moment, then plunged the knife into the man's leg. A collective gasp echoed through the chat box as blood spurted from the wound, staining the floor. Thank you for watching. Join us again next week for another episode of Hellstream. I closed my laptop, my heart still pounding. The Red Room had opened a door to a world I never knew existed, a world where darkness reigned and morality was just a word. I had taken my first step into hell, and there was no turning back. This is just the beginning of the story. If you would like, I can continue developing the plot or provide an outline for the rest of the story to ensure it reaches the desired length and depth. Let me know how you would like to proceed. Sleep evaded me. My mind was consumed by the events I had witnessed. The images of the Red Room burned into my memory. I had to know more. Who was behind the mask? How were the victims chosen? What was the ultimate purpose of Hellstream? The next day, I began my search. I scoured forums and chat rooms on the deep web, looking for any mention of the Red Room. Most were dead ends, but a few hinted at a network of individuals dedicated to producing and consuming these gruesome spectacles. They called themselves the Disciples of Pain. Days turned into weeks as I dug deeper, each clue leading me further down the rabbit hole. Finally, I found a contact, someone who claimed to have inside knowledge. Their username was Lucifer's Hand, and their reputation preceded them. They were known for their brutality, a figure of fear and respect in the darkest corners of the web. I reached out, my message simple and direct. I want in. The response was almost immediate. Prove yourself. Attached was a list of names and addresses. Targets. My initiation into the Disciples of Pain required a blood offering, a demonstration of my commitment to the cause. I felt a chill run down my spine. There was no turning back now. The first target was a middle-aged man living alone in a decrepit apartment. According to the dossier, he was a low-level dealer with a history of petty crime. Easy prey. I watched him for days, learning his routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The night came, and I was ready. Dressed in black, I broke into his apartment, a knife clutched in my hand. He was asleep, snoring loudly on a filthy mattress. I approached slowly, heart pounding in my chest. This was it. My initiation. I pounced, covering his mouth with one hand while plunging the knife into his chest with the other. His eyes flew open, filled with shock and pain. He struggled, but I held firm, driving the blade deeper. Blood poured from the wound, soaking the mattress. His struggles grew weaker until finally, he lay still. I stood over the body, panting, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had done it. I had crossed the line. I took a photo of the scene, sending it to Lucifer's Hand as proof. The response was swift. Welcome to the Disciples of Pain. With my initiation complete, I was granted access to the inner circle of the Disciples of Pain. It was a secret forum, hidden deep within the web, accessible only to those deemed worthy. Here, the members shared their exploits, trading tips and stories of their darkest deeds. I quickly learned that the Red Room was just the tip of the iceberg. The Disciples of Pain were involved in a wide range of activities, from kidnapping and torture to murder and organ trafficking. Each act was meticulously planned and executed, a testament to their dedication and skill. I became a regular participant, contributing my own stories and learning from the more experienced members. My fascination with the Red Room grew, and I began to ask questions, probing for more information. Most were tight-lipped, but one user, Dark Saint, took a liking to me. Dark Saint was a veteran, one of the founding members of the Disciples of Pain. He was a master of torture, known for his creativity and cruelty. Over time, he began to share more details about the Red Room, hinting at a higher purpose, a grand plan orchestrated by the group's elusive leader, the Architect. The Architect was a legend, a figure shrouded in mystery. According to Dark Saint, he was the mastermind behind the Disciples of Pain. The one who had created the Red Room and orchestrated the broadcasts. His vision was simple, to push the boundaries of human suffering and explore the darkest corners of the human psyche. One night, I received a private message from Dark Saint. The Architect wants to meet you. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The meeting was set for the following night, at a location deep in the city's industrial district. I arrived early, my nerves on edge. The building was an abandoned warehouse, its windows boarded up, and its walls covered in graffiti. I entered cautiously, my footsteps echoing in the empty space. At the far end of the room, a figure stood, cloaked in shadow. "Welcome," the voice was calm, authoritative. "I am the architect." He stepped forward, revealing a face hidden behind a featureless white mask. There was an aura of menace about him, a presence that demanded respect and fear. "You have proven yourself worthy," he continued. "But there is still much to learn. Are you ready to embrace the darkness fully?" I nodded, my resolve firm. "Yes, I am." "Good," the architect said. "Then let us begin." The architect led me to a hidden chamber beneath the warehouse, a place that made the red room look tame by comparison. The walls were lined with instruments of torture, each one more diabolical than the last. In the center of the room, a young woman was chained to a metal table, her eyes wide with terror. "This is your final test," the architect said. "Prove your loyalty. Show no mercy." I approached the table, my heart pounding in my chest. The woman's muffled cries filled the air, a symphony of fear and despair. I picked up a scalpel, its blade gleaming under the dim light. I hesitated for a moment, then plunged the scalpel into her flesh. She screamed, a sound that echoed through the chamber. I cut deeper, the blood flowing freely, each stroke of the blade a testament to my commitment. The architect watched in silence, his expression unreadable behind the mask. I lost myself in the act, the thrill of causing pain, the rush of power. By the time I finished, the woman was barely alive, her body a canvas of blood and wounds. The architect nodded approvingly. "You have done well. Welcome to the inner sanctum." As I became more involved with the disciples of pain, I learned more about their true purpose. The Red Room was not just a form of entertainment, it was a means of control. The broadcasts were carefully crafted to instill fear, to manipulate and dominate the minds of those who watched. The architect's vision went beyond mere torture. He sought to create a new world order, one where pain and suffering were the ultimate currency. The Red Room was just the beginning, a tool to recruit and indoctrinate followers, to build an army of the damned. One night, the architect called a meeting of the inner circle. We gathered in the hidden chamber, the air thick with anticipation. "The time has come," the architect announced. "Our plan is in motion. Soon, the world will know the true meaning of pain." He revealed the details of his plan, a series of coordinated attacks designed to spread chaos and fear. Each one more brutal than the last, each one designed to break the will of the masses. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was it. The culmination of everything we had worked for. The world was about to plunge into darkness, and I was a part of it. The night of the final broadcast arrived. The Red Room was prepared, the cameras set to capture every moment of the carnage. The victim, a high-ranking government official, was brought in, bound and gagged. His eyes were filled with defiance, but I knew it wouldn't last. The architect stood before the camera, his mask gleaming under the harsh lights. One night, the architect called a meeting of the inner circle. We gathered in the hidden chamber, the air thick with anticipation. "The time has come," the architect announced. "Our plan is in motion. Soon, the world will know the true meaning of pain." He revealed the details of his plan, a series of coordinated attacks designed to spread chaos and fear. Each one more brutal than the last, each one designed to break the will of the masses. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was it. The culmination of everything we had worked for. The world was about to plunge into darkness, and I was a part of it. The night of the final broadcast arrived. The Red Room was prepared, the cameras set to capture every moment of the carnage. The victim, a high-ranking government official, was brought in, bound and gagged. His eyes were filled with defiance, but I knew it wouldn't last. The architect stood before the camera, his mask gleaming under the harsh lights. The broadcast had ended, but the images lingered in my mind. The architect's plan was now in motion, and chaos spread like wildfire. The news was filled with reports of brutal murders, orchestrated attacks, and growing panic. Hellstream had left its mark on the world, a mark that would not fade easily. My own role in the violence became more pronounced. I was no longer a passive observer, I was an active participant, a disciple of pain. The architect tasked me with more assignments, each one more brutal than the last. My hands were stained with blood, and my mind was consumed by darkness. One night, as I prepared for another mission, I received an encrypted message from Dark Saint. The architect has a special task for you. Meet me at the warehouse. I arrived at the warehouse, my heart pounding in anticipation. Dark Saint was waiting, his expression grim. We have a problem, he said. One of our own has betrayed us. He handed me a dossier, detailing the traitor's identity and location. It was a name I recognized, a fellow disciple who had been with us since the beginning. The architect wants them eliminated, Dark Saint continued. Make an example of them, I nodded, understanding the gravity of the task. Betrayal was the ultimate sin, and it had to be punished. Tracking down the traitor was no easy task. They had gone to ground, hiding in the shadows, but I was relentless. I followed every lead, piecing together their movements, closing in on their location. The trail led me to a remote cabin in the woods, far from prying eyes. I approached cautiously, my knife ready. The cabin was dark, but I could sense movement inside. I kicked in the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The traitor was waiting, a look of fear and resignation on their face. Please, they begged. I had no choice, I felt a surge of anger. You betrayed us. There is no forgiveness. I moved swiftly, the knife flashing in the dim light. Blood sprayed as I slashed at their flesh, each cut a testament to their betrayal. They screamed, but I felt no remorse, only a cold satisfaction. When it was over, I stood over the lifeless body, the floor slick with blood. I took a photo, sending it to Dark Saint as proof. The response was immediate, well done. Return to the warehouse. The architect was waiting when I returned, his masked face inscrutable. Dark Saint stood by his side, a look of approval in his eyes. You have done well, the architect said. But there is still more to be done. The world must know that we will not tolerate betrayal. He handed me a new assignment, one that made my blood run cold. The target was a family, innocent civilians who had unknowingly crossed paths with the disciples of pain. Their deaths would serve as a message to the world. No one was safe. I hesitated, but the architect's gaze bore into me, demanding obedience. I took the dossier, my resolve firm. There was no turning back now. The family lived in a quiet suburb, a picture of normalcy. I watched them for days, learning their routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The father was a businessman, the mother a homemaker, and the children innocent bystanders in a world they didn't understand. The night came, and I was ready. I broke into the house, moving silently through the darkened rooms. The family was asleep, unaware of the horror about to unfold. I started with the parents, silencing their screams with swift, brutal efficiency. Blood stained the walls as I moved through the house, each act of violence a testament to my commitment. The children were next, their terrified cries echoing in my ears as I ended their lives. When it was over, the house was a scene of carnage, a silent testament to the wrath of the disciples of pain. I took photos, sending them to the architect. The response was swift, excellent work. The world will tremble. As the violence escalated, the disciples of pain grew bolder, their actions more brazen. The world was gripped by fear, but with each act of brutality, I felt something shift within me. The darkness that had once consumed me began to feel hollow, a void that could not be filled. One night, after a particularly gruesome mission, I received an unexpected message. It was from an anonymous source, someone who claimed to have information about the architect's true identity. Intrigued, I arranged a meeting. My curiosity piqued. The rendezvous was set in a deserted park, far from the eyes of the disciples. The informant was a shadowy figure, their face hidden beneath a hood. "The architect is not who you think," they said, their voice low and urgent. "He has been manipulating you from the beginning." I felt a surge of anger. "Who are you? Why should I believe you?" The informant handed me a folder, filled with documents and photos. "See for yourself. The architect's real name is in there. He's been using you to further his own agenda." I opened the folder, my hands shaking. The evidence was damning. The architect was not a visionary, but a sadistic manipulator, using the disciples of pain to sate his own twisted desires. I felt a wave of nausea. Everything I had done, every life I had taken, had been for nothing. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Join us," the informant said. "Help us bring him down. End this madness." I hesitated, the weight of my actions bearing down on me. But deep down, I knew the truth. The architect had to be stopped. Returning to the warehouse, I knew my next move had to be careful. The architect's trust in me was my greatest weapon. I continued to carry out assignments, all the while gathering intel and planning my next step. The informant and I devised a plan to expose the architect. We would capture one of the broadcasts, hijack it, and reveal his true identity to the world. It was a risky move, but it was the only way to end his reign of terror. The night of the broadcast arrived. The Red Room was prepared, the cameras set to capture every moment of the violence. But this time, things would be different. I waited for the signal, my heart pounding. The informant had hacked into the broadcast, ready to expose the truth. As the architect began his speech, the feed was interrupted, replaced by the evidence we had gathered. The screen flickered, then resolved into a series of documents and photos, detailing the architect's true identity in his manipulations. The chat box erupted in confusion and anger. User 1, "What is this?" User 2, "He's a fraud." User 3, "We've been lied to." The architect's mask hid his reaction, but I could feel the fury radiating from him. He turned to me, his eyes blazing with rage. "You did this," he hissed. "You betrayed me." I stood my ground, my resolve firm. "Your reign ends tonight." The architect lunged at me, a knife flashing in his hand. I dodged, grabbing a weapon from the wall. We clashed, the room echoing with the sounds of our struggle. He was a formidable opponent, his movements quick and precise. But I was fueled by anger, by the need to right the wrongs I had committed. We fought fiercely, each blow a testament to our resolve. Finally, I saw an opening. I disarmed him, the knife clattering to the floor. I moved swiftly, plunging my own blade into his chest. He gasped, his eyes wide with shock. "This is for everyone you've hurt," I said, twisting the knife. He fell to the ground, his life draining away. I stood over him, my heart pounding. It was over. The architect was dead, his reign of terror ended. With the architect's death, the disciples of pain began to unravel. The broadcast had exposed the truth, and the authorities moved swiftly to dismantle the network. Many were arrested, others fled, disappearing into the shadows. I knew my own reckoning was coming. I had been a willing participant in the violence, and now, I had to face the consequences. The informant, whose true identity remained a mystery, had promised to help me, but I knew it would not be enough. I turned myself in, ready to face justice. The trial was swift, the evidence overwhelming. I was sentenced to life in prison, my actions condemned by society, but even behind bars, the memories of the Red Room haunted me. The faces of my victims, their screams of pain, echoed in my mind. I knew that no matter how many years passed, I could never escape the darkness that had consumed me.